YouTube.com/Tim Westwood TV. It's Radio 1, it's Westwood. I want to welcome a man, Stone Cold Steve Austin in the building. Big. How you feeling, Steve? You looking pretty stone cold.
I'm feeling pretty good. Waiting on a cup of coffee.
Oh, you waiting on
coffee? Didn't sleep much
coffee?
last night, and we've been cracking since early this morning, but I'm holding together.
Oh, man. I mean, seeing you sitting here, man, is a legend, dog, in this wrestling game, man. You really elevated sports entertainment to a different level, man. I mean, you started off with WCW, and, you know, they really treated you badly.
I think it was a case of, a lot of things. I don't think the creative powers that were there at the time really knew what to do with Steve Austin or how to make him to a star. I don't think in the history of that company they didn't really make too many big names as far as the business goes. So, it was kind of fitting. I always tell people the best thing that ever happened to me was when they fired me.
Exactly.
And I went down to WWE and finally started off with a stupid name there for about 6 months and came up with Stone Cold deal and kind of struck gold.
I mean, you joined WWF. You were the Ringmaster in those days, with the $1 Million Man as your manager. I mean, was that really restrictive for you?
Well, it sounded like an okay idea at the time when Vince called me when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and he pitched the idea. It was a time in my life where I needed another job, and so I took him up on it. Of course, I love Ted DiBiase. He's one of my favorite wrestlers, and I love the $1 Million gimmick that he did, but it didn't work for me. But it gave me a chance to kind of test the waters and see what was going on over there, and I came up with the Stone Cold deal, and it happened. But basically, that Ringmaster was just essential for me to get my foot in the door of the WWE.
Exactly. Now, Stone Cold was 97. Some controversy whether it was Vince Russo or yourself. I mean, I believe it was you.
Well, if you listen to Vince Russo talk, everything, what was his idea. I think if you were to listen to that logic, when he went down to WCW, everything went to complete hell. Basically, Russo was a good idea guy. He wasn't the guy to look at the whole picture and do things. When he went to WCW, it blew up in his face.
Yeah. Now, tell us about that, man, because you are definitely playing yourself, man. Your character in that sports entertainment world. You weren't playing something; you were being yourself, man.
It was, and it's a deal where you go out there and you get a chance to, if you've got to live your life kind of on volume 1 or 2 level. Because obviously when I turned it up that 10 level, I mean, if I was just doing that 24/7 in life, I probably would have spent a lot of time in jail.
In jail, brother. Now, if you were to define like Steve Austin Cold Stone at Volume 10, how would you, what came out?
Ratings.
Oh, you're talking about the after party. You're talking about the after party jump off. Crazy.
It was, it was a good time. I don't know. There's too many words I'd have to use, and I don't think we can use them all on the radio.
Right.
But it was one of the best times in my life.
Wild.
Living, and everything was on fire. Everything was going full speed ahead. And, you kind of, when you get in that mode, I mean, there's nothing you can't do. And, whether you stay up all night and wrestle all night or do whatever you do, life is a real good thing.
So you were wrestling men in the evening and then wrestling women at night.
Well, I can't go on record saying that.
Now, when you beat Jake the Snake Roberts and became Austin 316, I mean, how defining was that?
Well, that was a good thing because, I was never designed to win that pay-per-view. There was some political stuff going on, and so someone else was supposed to win the pay-per-view, but that person was being punished, so that's why I won that pay-per-view.
Whoa.
The key is not the wins that I had in there with Mark Merrow and Jake the Snake Roberts. What happened was, the first match I got kicked in my lip, and by Mark Merrow, I won the match, of course. They took me to the ambulance. I got 14, 16 stitches in my upper lip. They take me back from the hospital in the ambulance back to the pay-per-view. And a guy tells me, hey, you're going to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts in the final, and you just got a religious-based promo on you, so you might want to remember that, when you win the King of the Ring. So as soon as I heard him say that religious thing, I was like, boom, there it is. Because back in the day, in American football, when they're kicking the field goals, they would always have a sign behind the goalpost said, John 3:16, a religious connotation, as you know.
Yeah.
And so, that since I was a heel at the time, I knew right then, I was going to say something about an Austin 3:16. Oh, and of course,
real?
While I'm out there running him down, and I was a heel at the time, and basically, I said, you sit there and you thump your Bibles and say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and then I needed to wrap that promo up. So
Yeah.
at the end of the promo, I just pulled one out of a hat, so to speak. And I came up with, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. So a fluke win at a pay-per-view that I was never supposed to win in the first place, and a guy cutting a religious-based promo were the inspirations to me coming up with two of the biggest things that would ever happen in the history of wrestling.
Yeah, and that's Stone Cold Says So was like that's part of culture, man.
I still use it today. Not at the house or at the neighborhood or at a restaurant. But,
I want my steak well done. Why?
That's the bottom line.
That's the
Because
bottom line.
Stone Cold said so. Yeah, I'm a real hit at the restaurant. Yeah. Hey, could you keep it down over there?
Yeah, because Stone Cold Says So. I mean, that wrestling was definitely like real, man. I mean, when you were going up against like The Rock, you know. Even though there might have been like a determined outcome, it was still two guys going at it.
But it was two guys going at it in the right way. I mean, trying to, and he drove me to my best, and I drove him to his best.
Yes.
There was just good chemistry in the ring, and we liked each other, and we liked working with each other. And so, anytime we went into the ring or just to cut promos against each other, didn't matter what it was going to be magic.
Did you ever feel like maybe you weren't going to stick to the storyline when you were fighting The Rock? Did you ever feel like maybe it won't go this way?
Well, pretty much in every WrestleMania I've ever wrestled Rock, and I beat him except for the last one. So, I could never complain about victories and losses.
Yes.
But I remember it was WrestleMania 17. It was a match that was in Houston Astrodome. We set another all-time attendance record there. And that's where I beat Rock, of course, with a chair. Anything goes. And that was when I basically turned into a heel or a bad guy. And, Rock would go on to make a movie. Triple H was hurt. I really had no one to do business with in the ring that was at the right level. And I always look back. And the biggest thing was people didn't want to hate Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Exactly. I never thought you as a heel worked.
Well, no, it didn't work.
It never worked.
But that's my point. If I could go back and say, we're going to change this, I would have done the match exactly the same. Some of the dirty things that I did because that was Stone Cold and that was edgy. But when Vince McMahon came down to the ring, instead of shaking his hand and drinking a beer with him, I would have just said,
no to that.
I just looked at him and underneath my breath I said, can't do it. Watch the stunner. And I'd have kicked him in his gut and dropped him.
Yeah.
That's what I would do if I could go back, but I can't. It was just a bad time when I tried to turn heel. It didn't work at all.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it because I felt a little bit flat going into that build, and it was such a great build that me and The Rock did. By the time I got to WrestleMania, I'd re-energize myself and where I was. And so, but leading up to the match, I definitely wanted to go heel. But once we got to the match, it was like, man. But once I committed, I wasn't going to take the cheesy or the easy way out and say, let me kind of play it 50-50 and try to get some people like me, some people hate me. If I'm going to be a heel, if I'm going to be a babyface, I'm not going for gray. I'm going for black or white.
Yes.
And at that point, I wanted to be hated.
Yes.
And, and so I tried hard, but it didn't work.
Now let's just talk about, the numbers which we're watching on pay-per-view, but the numbers you were packing into stadiums and like how you just toured the whole country and then toured the world. I mean, you were hitting some serious numbers out there.
Yeah, it was a deal where it didn't matter what night of the week it was, Sunday through Monday. Every place we went was sold out. And we're talking, big arenas.
Yeah, I mean, numbers, what, 40,000?
Well, most of the arenas in the States, for their indoor stuff, whether it be it basketball, a hockey rink, or whatever, will basically pack from 17 to 22,000.
Unbelievable.
So, if I just had to put an average on it, I'd say, 20 G's a night in paid attendance, and the merch, business was crazy.
And the merchandise, how crazy was that? That
was insane.
Insane. That must have been above ticket revenue.
It was crazy because, basically, I was getting, paid really good money to wrestle, but my merchandise money was just stupid. Silly. And then I was one of the most bootlegged acts in the state.
Yes.
And they brought in all these different agencies to stop all the Stone Cold bootleg business.
Whoa.
Because people were making money on the side and trying to cut in on what we were making. So it was it was a good problem to have.
Yeah, and were you looked after? Did Vince look after you? I mean,
the thing about Vince, I mean, you need to learn the pay system, and that's why I always tell guys these days. I mean, you got to write down what the house was, meaning your total amount, what your gross is, what you got paid on that card, what was your position on that card. You have to educate yourself within the system. Once I did that, and then I got in on my contracts and my percentages on my merchandise. Once you learn the system, Vince knows you learn the system. Vince is a man's man, and he will pay you what you're worth. But he's got to know that you know that.
Exactly.
He's just not just going to hand it over to you.
Exactly.
But he takes pride in paying his top guys a lot of money.
For real.
And so I could never complain about the money that Vince paid me, ever.
That's it. And Stone Cold, that is a beautiful thing to hear, man.
Well, that's the truth.
But it's a beautiful thing to hear.
Yeah.
In my music game, I hear a lot of sad stories, man. It's a beautiful thing that it worked. Now, sports entertainment, I think some people don't understand the skill involved, the technical side involved, and, the level of, athleticism and fitness, but also, you could really get yourself hurt.
You can, and I got dropped on my head, almost got paralyzed.
Exactly.
I tore my tricep off my right arm, had it reattached, 3 broke bones in my back. I mean, you could go, every guy in the business can make a list a mile long. When you go out there, you're trying to protect the guy you're working with. By the same token, you're trying to make it look as real as possible. Yeah. Accidents happen, guys get black eyes, and the easy stuff all the time. But that's what you're getting into, and it's like me just speaking because I'm from the States. When we look at our American football players after they've had a long career, I mean, they're pretty beat up. Yeah. Because it's a given. Yeah. That's the trade-off. You're going to get paid this, and this is what you're going to feel like when you get done. And I feel really good. All the injuries I've had, I mean, everything's all healed up. So I never. Sometimes I see guys and they're bitter or they'll complain or stuff like that. I never complain about anything that's ever happened to me because it's all a part of the journey in that. And if you think it's ballet, it's not.
Yeah. And, I mean, the thing is, well, man, is like having to wrestle when you had injuries. When that
goes to the show must go on.
Yeah.
When that town has been waiting there for 3 weeks, and hey, Stone Cold Steve Austin's coming to town, and I broke this or I pulled that or whatever. Hey, you still strap it up and you go. Yeah. Because that's the job. Yeah. And that's it's the old saying, you play when you're hurt. And I don't care if it's rugby or y'all's football out here, soccer. I mean, guys are still playing when they're hurt. Top guys play when you're hurt, and that's the pride you take in being the leader of that crew. Yeah. You play hurt. And you work hard. But that's no different than anybody. I know guys in the States that are in the tile business. You spend your life on your knees, and they ache like hell when they're going to work because it's the same thing. It's not. There's not a million people cheering him around, but he's got to go to work, so he's working hurt. Yeah. Hey, life's life, and a job's a job. Go do your job.
I respect that, dog. I respect that. Who do you think are the greatest wrestlers in this game, man? Who were your inspiration over the years?
I'd have to say, at the top of my list, as far as who I think epitomizes what a pro wrestler should be or is Nature Boy Ric Flair, the greatest champion ever to lace up a pair of boots. Yeah. I was a big fan of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Yes. Harley Race, the Briscoe brothers. Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes. Going with a bunch of names. Yeah. I'll put my name in there as just being a guy who had a great career. But of course, when I look at myself, you're critical of yourself. When I want to watch something that really entertains me, I'll put something in either mid '80s or early '80s WWF, pre-WWE, or I'll watch mid '80s NWA. Yes. Or I'll watch some of that stuff that came out of when Jim Ross was announcing in Mid-South and Power Pro down in Oklahoma. Guys, Jerry the King Lawler was a tremendous wrestler. He's one of my favorites.
Okay,
Nick Bockwinkel.
She's really throwing some names out there, Doc. Do you know those people? I'm lost already. I'm lost. I'm lost on that one. Okay, well, I'm good, man. I just really want to thank you for coming in and being part of this,
I appreciate you giving me some time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This is Stone Cold Steve Austin telling you to listen to Westwood on Radio 1, or I'll stomp a mud hole in you and walk it dry. And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
Oh, I like that one. YouTube.com/Tim Westwood TV. Can we have some more of those, like some violent ones?